In today's video, I have brought you a very nice equation involving the floor function with two different dependent variables, x and y. Okay, so you may guys interested in this one. So here is a following equation. We have 4 is multiplied by y is multiplied by the floor of x equals 207. Okay, and then the second equation, we have 5x is multiplied by floor of y equals 206. Okay, so the first equation we write y as a variable is multiplied by the floor of different variable. The second equation, the inverse, we have x instead y, we have the floor of y instead floor of x. So the numbers between first one and second one, just only one number difference, 207, 206. For all xy is strictly superior than 0 as a real numbers. Okay, so if you guys can give that a try to promptly get into solution, go ahead, pause this video when you want to come back to see the full solution. Okay, so before we proceed with the solution, I would like to remind you about, the floor function is an greatest integer less or equal to x. Okay, so we have x equals n as an integer number, then x must be kept in this interval n plus number 1 and n. Okay, there is another important thing about this one. So we have x minus the floor of x equals the fraction like this. Okay, let's put this one as a epsilon. Okay, so this one, the difference between x and the floor of x equals this number epsilon. Epsilon is between 0 and 1. This one can go all the way down to number 1, but is not number 1. Okay, this one exactly what I'm going to apply here. Okay, so we have the following equation. We have 4 is multiplied by y is multiplied by the floor of x equals 207. Okay, then the second equation, we have 5x is multiplied by floor of y equals 206. Okay, let's set x equals the floor of x plus epsilon 1. So I'm just moving this one to the right. Okay, where is the epsilon? Is between the set 0 and 1. Okay, so for y I will have the same thing, the floor of y plus epsilon 2. Okay, so I'm going to replace this one into x and y. Is giving me a new equation by replacing y with the floor of y plus epsilon 2. So we get 4 is multiplied by floor of y plus epsilon 2. This one will be multiplied by the floor of x. So the whole thing equals 207. So for the second equation, I get 5. X will be replaced with floor of x plus epsilon 1. This one will be multiplied by the floor of y equals 206. Okay, then I'm going to distribute this one. I get the following. I get 4 is multiplied by floor of y is multiplied by floor of x plus number 4 is multiplied by epsilon 2 is multiplied by floor of x equals 207. So I will have the same thing for the second equation. I get 5 is multiplied by floor of x is multiplied by floor of y plus 5 times is multiplied by floor of 5 times is multiplied by epsilon 1 is multiplied by floor of y equals to 206. Okay, I'm going to take this term to the right side. So I get here 4 is multiplied by epsilon 2 is multiplied by the floor of x equals 207 minus 4 times is multiplied by floor of x is multiplied by floor of y. Then I will have the same thing for the second equation. I get 5 is multiplied by epsilon 1 is multiplied by floor of y equals 206 minus 5 times is multiplied by floor of x is multiplied by floor of y. Okay, now we are going to mention something very important here. So this term is integer. This one is integer as well. You know the floor of x is an integer and the floor of y is an integer. That means this product is an integer. This one is an integer, which means the left hand side of this equation is an integer as well. Since this one is an integer, I'm going to replace it with another variable. The whole thing will be replaced with m. Then the whole thing will be replaced by n. Okay, so this whole thing must be an integer, not just epsilon 1 and floor of y, because if you consider this one as an integer, okay, we know this is an integer, then you will divide by 5, becomes not an integer. We must take the whole thing as an integer. Also the same thing with this one. So the whole left hand side of this equation is an integer, which means I get here 4 is multiplied by epsilon 2 is multiplied by the floor of x equals n. For the second equation, I get 5 is multiplied by epsilon 1 is multiplied by floor of y equals m. Okay, I'm going to save this one for later. Now I'm going to replace this one with n, this one with m. So here is I will have 4 is multiplied by a floor of y is multiplied by the floor of x plus this term is n equals 207. Okay, I'm just taking this information and plug it into this equation. Then the second equation becomes 5 is multiplied by the floor of x is multiplied by the floor of y plus m equals 206. Okay, like this. Since we have this product involving the floor of x and y, we need to get rid of this one by multiplying the first equation by 5 and then the second equation by 4, then make the difference between these equations. Equation number 1, this is equation number 2. I'm going to put 5 1 minus 4 2. Okay, this one will be cancelled out because this one becomes 20 minus 20 is given as 0. Okay, which means I will have here 5n minus 4m equals this term. If you multiply this one by 5 and multiply this one by 4 and you make this one minus this one is giving us 211. Okay, like this. Then I'm going to bring this 211 to the left and move over minus 4m to the right. I get 5n minus 211 equals 4m. Then I'm dividing both sides by number 4. What do we know about this m? So we know m is an integer, right? So we have m. Since we have x and y are positive numbers, okay, which means the floor of y is positive. Since the floor of y is positive with epsilon 1 is positive, so that means m is also positive, okay, and m is an integer, which means m must be super equal to 0, like this. If m is super equal to 0, which means this term must be super equal to 0. This one is telling us 5n minus 211 is super equal to 0. In the other word, by taking 211 to the right, I get here and divide both sides by 5, I will get n is super equal to 211 divided by 5. Okay, then if we go back to this equation here, I get here epsilon 2 equals n divided by 4 is multiplied by floor of x. Okay, so what do we know about the epsilon 2 is between 0 and 1, right? Which means the numerator must be smaller than denominator. Since n is super equal to 211 over 5, which means 4 is multiplied by floor of x is strictly superior than 211 over 5. If this one is just bigger than this one, but the denominator is more bigger than this one. Okay, so I will have the 4 is multiplied by the floor of x is strictly superior than 211 over 5. Okay, then I'm going to multiply both sides by y. I get here 4 y is multiplied by floor of x. I'm going to leave this empty. I'm going to leave this gap here. Is strictly superior than 211 over 5 is. So we know 4y is multiplied by floor of x equals 207. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to flip this inequality and multiply both sides by 5 over 11. So here is, I get y is strictly inferior than 207 is divided by 211 is multiplied by 5. Okay, this one is giving us 1035 divided by 211 is giving us 4.9 something. Okay, since y is strictly superior than 0, this means y between 0 and 4.9. okay, now if I'm going to apply the floor of y, so you can have 1, 2 or 3 or 4. okay, so the possibility of the floor of y, it could be 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. okay, then we are going to discuss all the cases because we know the floor of y is an integer. Now let's clean up this board and move on to the next step. The first case, if the floor of y equals 1, not equal to 0 because we have y is strictly superior than 0. So if the floor of y, I'm simply going to replace this value of the floor of y into the second equation to see what's given us. I will get 5 is multiplied by x is multiplied by number 1 equals 206, which means I get x equals 206 over 5. okay, then if I'm going to apply the floor of x on both sides, I get the floor of x equals the floor of 206 over 5. The floor of 206 is 40 point something, which means it's given as 40. Now we are going to insert this value of the floor of x and insert the first equation to find y. So I get 4y is multiplied by the floor of x, which is 40, equals 207. okay, this one is giving us y equals 207 is divided by 160. okay, because 4 is multiplied by 4, which is 160. If you divide, this one is giving us 1.2 something. okay, which means the floor of y must be equals 1, which means it's taking us back to the origin where we were at. okay, that means this is the solutions of x and y. The first solution, I get x equals 206 over 5 and y equals 207 over 160. okay, now let's move on to the second solution. Now let's move on to take the floor of y equals 2. We found the first solution for when we have the floor of y equals 1, so we're done with that. Now let's move on to the second case. Second case, case number 2, if the floor of y equals 2. I'm simply going to replace this value of the floor into the second equation to find x. I will have 5x is multiplied by the floor of 2, which is 2, equals 206. X equals 206 over 10. So which means dividing 206 by 2 is giving us 103 over 5. okay, as you know, 103 over 5, if you divide 100 by 5, is giving us 20 point something, which is the floor is 20. If the floor of x equals 20, I'm simply going to replace that value of x into this equation to find y. So I get 4y, because we know only the floor of y, not y. okay, so 4y is multiplied by the floor of x, which is 20, equals 207, which means y equals 207 over 80. 207 over 80 is not gonna go to number 3 here, because 3 is multiplied by 80 is 240, so you will have 2 point something. So 2 point something, if you apply the floor of y here, is giving us number 2, which is correct. okay, so I have the following of y and x. Now I will have the following solution. I'm going to put the solution next to this one. So the second solution, I will have x equals 103 over 5 and y equals 207 divided by area. okay, this one is not a reducible fraction because we have this odd even. When we see the number odd here and even here, never ever you see, it never ever will be simplified. okay, now let's move on to the case number 3, when we have the floor of y equals 3. Putting this one into this one, it gives us 5x is multiplied by 3 equals 206. In the other word, x equals 206. So this one will be stay the same here. You apply the floor of x on 13 point something is given as 13. Okay, so I get here the floor of x equals 13. Okay, simply to take in this value of the floor of x and insert it into the first equation to find y. Okay, because we know only y here, we know the floor of y, we don't know the y yet. Okay, so I have 4 is multiplied by y is multiplied by the floor of x, which is 13, equals 207. Okay, now y equals 207 divided by 52, because 4 is multiplied by 13. So I get here 207 divided by 52. If you calculate this one, is giving you 3.98. Okay, if you apply the floor on y here, I get 3, not 4. Okay, because you ground the number down to the 3. So we have the solution for this one. So this y, we found the same value that I found before. Okay, I start with this one, it is taking me back to this one, to the same value. Now we have the third pair of the solution, which is x equals 206 over 15 and y equals 207 over 52. I'm going to take this solution up here and move on to the last one. So for the case number 4, I get here the floor of y equals 4. Okay, I'm going to check this one. So I'm simply going to take this value of the floor and insert it into the second equation to find the x. So I get 5x is multiplied by 4 equals 206. Okay, so I'm simply x equals 206 over 20, because 5 is multiplied by 4. Then this is a reducible fraction. I'm going to divide by number 2. I get here 103 over 10. 103 over 10, which is 10 point something. Okay, so if I'm going to apply the floor of x here, I get 10. Okay, I'm simply going to take this value of the floor of x and insert it into the first equation to find y. I get 4 is multiplied by y. Floor of x will be replaced with number 10 equals 207. Equivalent, y equals 207 over this object. I have 4 is multiplied by 10, which is 40. If you calculate this fraction, is given as 5.17. 5.17, if you apply the floor on y here, I get here the floor of y equals 5. This is it's clearly a contradiction. It's impossible to have a floor of y equals 5, because we already have the floor of y equals 4, which is impossible, which in this case we have no solution for this case. I have only 3 pairs of the solution for this one. Okay, so I have ended this video. If you have any question or suggestion, just put it in the comment section below. Don't forget to support us with a like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I will see you next video. Bye.